the people that have the first flights out, and then they say, well, then they can't drink at night, and then and then the other end of the continuum is that they stay and they fuck around in Edinburgh, as the fucking peasants call it, or they go to London and fuck around. And then some are in, I'm not saying that this is the happy medium, but some, just take a regular flight like a non-minority, like a white man. And they leave here late morning, early afternoon, or whatever. And there's no correlation in 25 years and some months if you take the first fucking plane back or the last fucking plane back. Zero correlation. And for those that have deluded yourself, I'm going to take the first plane back. I'm going to get after it. Boy, I'm going to get after this shit. I'm going to hit the ground motherfucking running. Why? Is that part of the brainwashing? They used to tell me the early bird gets the worm. I think that's what they said. Early. Yeah. Is that still a saying? Yeah. Well, we have no correlation that the early fucking bird here gets the worm. The one that pulls the fucking trigger without knowing anything, like Marcus, who's sitting in the back row, gets the motherfucking worm. Marcus, they don't believe. They don't want to believe. Forget the English part. Okay? Forget that. They don't want to believe that you just went out and started hatching and cutting and slashing and without knowing dog shit. But
I did.
I know. Oh, believe me, I lived through it. I know you did. You don't want to believe. Because that makes your miserable lives even more miserable. You understand what I'm saying? That means you're even a bigger vagina cunt than I say you are. And a majority of the people that have been super successful, like Marcus, who happens to be in the room, just went out there, and as Jocko would say, what does he say? Get after it, or what's he say? Yeah, get after it. I don't know what that means, but anyway. And when you heard Peter, not this Peter, but Peter on the webinar yesterday, when he said he took a week, which is 6 days and 23 hours longer than you need to figure out what industry to go in. Everybody follow that? 6 days and 23 hours longer than he needed for the week because he felt uncomfortable not knowing any of the nomenclature, any of the words, etc. And we continue to see these movies about these magnets, or I call maggots, of the century before last, because we're in the 19th century, because they're all the same. So, what maggots did you see last night?
That is up with Ford. The introduction of Ford.
Oh, he was a. Did they show the part where he beat his employees with baseball bats?
No.
See, history. He says, "Do you want to be in a fucking union? I'll give you a union." So he hired thugs, probably Afrikaners, but anyway, Afrikaans, and they beat the lines. And then, if I remember correctly, he had bribed the police, and the police just turned a blind eye and just got back in their fucking trolley cars and went away.
Supported Hitler.
Yeah, supported Hitler. Well, I mean, the royal family in this country supported Hitler, so I mean, he's not the only one. And not more importantly, but he also figured out a way that his employees could buy cars because he upped the wage, the minimum wage for the people that were working on the assembly line because he needed to sell cars. Now, everybody gives him credit for upping the minimum wage because he was a humanitarian.
Like that.
In the end, that's what happened. You know, history is kind of. But I mean, if he was willing to beat the employees with baseball bats, I don't think that there was much humanitarian in him when he upped the price or the wages that he paid. I think he paid $5 a day in the end, a day. Yeah. Maybe Tesla's going to do that. He'll up the wage and so he can sell cars to his own employees. What about Mr. Ford? Other than he falls into our group of other magnates.
Innovation.
Mm-hmm.
You revolutionize the assembly lines
Mm-hmm.
in order to basically make the product more accessible to everybody. So that you're saying, so that create, find a need for 1 billion people and you'll be a billionaire.
Correct. And but then again, he's just like one of the other guys. Anything else?
It seems to me that the only reason why cars are powered by petrol gas is because Rockefeller was thrown out of the way and he was about to lose his shit on kerosene, and so electric, it sounded like, would have been a better option, but it just the right people weren't going to monetize on it.
And you got to realize that this is long before they found oil in the Middle East. And the guy that found the most oil in the Middle East was J. Paul Getty. And J. Paul Getty, they said, and that's when oil was $1 or $2 a barrel or less. And they said that they had so much oil they couldn't build pipelines and they couldn't get it out of the Middle East quick enough. So he invented a super tanker. And the great line from the movie when they kidnapped his grandson or his son.
His grandson.
Grandson, that's right. They said, "Well, I have 14 other, and you can send me their body parts too." And that's how they were. And the challenge, and if those of you that have seen the more recent movie about J. Paul Getty, is that the reason he got rich relatively quickly and was arguably the first billionaire is because he paid no taxes. He did everything in a foundation. So when he died, he never paid a nickel tax. And if he hadn't figured out a way to loan the money, the million or whatever it was, to buy his grandson, I'm sure he probably wouldn't have done it. So he was one of the first individuals that, through lawyers you can't afford, through the best lawyers in the world, to figure out if you build your assets in a foundation. And now the Clintons have got a foundation. Everybody and their dog's got a foundation. And the trick or the tip, or whatever you want to call it, is most foundations don't pay taxes. So you arguably could start a foundation. But when you unwind the foundation, the taxes are due. But you haven't paid them, it's whoever the beneficiaries are. And if the beneficiaries are other foundations, you can arguably keep pushing the taxes out. I don't know forever, but you can push them out a long, long ways. But they're all the same. Anything else about Ford or the movie?
He lived in his dream, and then he was happy to fight against the big ones, and squeaky wheel get the wheel, so he used the big ones to actually get more advertisement, or he heard more.
Bruce Whipple sent me a clip, a 10-minute clip. We're not going to watch it, and it was about Arnold Schwarzenegger, and he's in front of a group, and he's talking about his dream. And he said he wouldn't be standing here if he hadn't had a dream. He worked construction 12 hours a day. He took acting 4 hours a day. And he slept whenever he could. But he saw himself as being Mr. Olympia. And he saw himself, which they kind of cut out now, as being president of the United States. And if the law wasn't that you got to be a natural born citizen, he may have very well have accomplished that. And he said, but you can't go with no sleep. You can't go with no food unless you see that vision. And it's got to be strong, and it's got to be reconfirmed. He didn't talk about affirmations in this little thing I watched, but it's very similar to what we've talked about the last week plus. Anything else about Mr. Ford? Yes, sir.
Litigation is a business tool. When he took on the monopoly, the automobile monopoly, the alarm, and he stood no chance to win against those guys because previously those who tried to had failed, and he eventually won the case against them.
And when people are used to winning in litigation, as the unions or whoever, and the people that Ford took on, they get sloppy. And it's like when a sports team has won so many, and then a team, obscure team from some other, not from the same era, but not as well financed, etc., beats them. It's because they get sloppy. Because whoever said it's hard to get to the top, it's infinitely more difficult to stay at the top. And I don't know who said that, but somebody said it, and they were absolutely accurate. Now, the last day, questions, and I'm not seeing anybody privately because I want the questions are to be a learning experience for everybody. You saw, or you were supposed to look at the webinars, which ones that we were going to go over in depth, and I was going to answer questions, and I would add to, I'm not going to subtract from, but I'm going to add to the webinars, because the webinars stand on their own 2 feet. They say what they do, and they're not edited. They're not edited, are they? No, they're not edited. I just want to make sure I said that. They're not edited, so we haven't bleeped any shit out of them. And it's the kids, you being the kids, and how they've made the system work for themselves. And everybody does it maybe 2 to 5% differently based on your personalities. The words that I use are much more firm than the templates you have. Either in the book or the templates on the slides from the first seminar. They're much more firm, and they're shorter. They're very analogous to the words that you heard Josh say. Except Josh, to the best of my knowledge, he's short and firm, but I mean he doesn't use 4-letter words. And so you'll fit your personality to the templates. The real difference is some of you are, and you don't have to be an alpha male to do this. Some of you are feel that you're offending the people. I believe you should, because I know what works. Because when you offend them and they still they still are motivated, it's because they're really motivated.
It's a selection tool.
What?
It's like a selection tool.
Well, yeah, it's a selection tool. You want as many in your funnel, either whatever funnels you're working on, you want a bunch of them in there, and you know that if you offend them, the funnel's going to reduce. What you're really afraid of is the funnel's going to dry up. And then if the funnel dries up, then you got to start over again. You haven't got, well, most of you haven't got to the point where you got to have 50 in the funnel, not 5, because it's easier to go through 5, and it's significantly harder to go through 50. We had a chart in the first seminar. We had 3 examples. We had 3 Hall of Famers. One made 1,200 calls in the year, cold calls. One made 1,500 cold calls. Remember that slide? One made 1,800 cold calls. Cold. Not leave a message on the answering service. Nah, I mean, actually talk to some warm, maybe not so warm, they're half dead, maybe they're cold body. And then we extrapolated, or as Marcus, we calculated, you're not going to make 1,800. You're not going to make 1,500. So we're going to use the smallest amount, 1,200 calls. That's 100 calls a month, right? That's 25 calls a week. That's 5 calls a day, Irish. I remember when I was young and single and running around, sometimes I'd have to make 15, 18 calls to get a date for Friday night. I'm calling them Friday morning, but and I just burned through the numbers. Well, I didn't go to the yellow page. I didn't have to go to the yellow pages or the white pages, but I would have. So it's 5 calls a day, and all 3 were very successful. 5 calls a day doesn't seem like much, does it? When you think that Josh is still making 20 or 30 cold calls a day. 2 or 3 of you have told me in the group that I don't know, these are my words right now. I got my head screwed on straight, and I'm going to get, as Jocko would say, I'm going to get after it when I get back. And I'm going to make so many calls, and I'm going to do this, that, and the other thing. And the good thing about the hardcore seminar is it's at the end of the year, and a lot of people start new shit in the new year. But they also they sell a lot of health plans at gyms, and they use the first 3 to 6 weeks, and then they never go again. And then they sell a lot of other things, and they never go again. Well, this program is not much different than that, because a lot of people start, even the people that aren't at the hardcore, they have a new year-end goals. I do my goals. Sally and I normally do our goals between Christmas and New Year's. Now we do them the first 3 days of the new year because we're with you. And we change our goals. Okay, so any questions before we move into the webinars about anything? Okay, webinars. What's the common consent? Well, there's no common consensus because some of you, I think you met in groups to go through the webinars. Okay, Tom?
Sir, yeah, I think the ones that I'd be most interested in, I know there's several more from Frank, and I think there's several.
The 7-footer.
Right, and there's several more from Josh. It wouldn't be bad.
Okay, so you're not saying about any specific title, you're just talking about individuals now. What's the input from the rest of you, if any? Yep.
If you're going to go do a deal in a place where you need a partner, could you talk more about some of the things you should look for in the partner, and also how much...
You mean a joint venture partner?
Yeah, and then specifically Simon...
For government contracts?
That, or... Yeah, probably, yeah. And because Simon went and had to have a partner, but chose the wrong one, gave him too much, and he didn't dive too deep, but it did work out.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's do the joint venture partner first. We've already talked about all the government contracts that are online. Ross has some experience with the South African government contracts, and there's literally millions of them. Okay, if you were going to do a construction bid on a construction thing, since Marcus is in the room, Marcus has experience in doing all that, and Elliott's also got experience. You pick somebody that has the experience, like these 2 guys. Now, what reason do they have to do it with you is the real question. When you show them all your cards, why would either one of them, when they see that it's from a government website, some will do it with you because they have not integrated into their own network of their own business government contracts. So they may do it with you the first time or 2 to sample, to see how it works. Most of the joint ventures that you do only last 1 or 2 or 3 deals. As soon as Marcus and Anelli figure out how to do it, they're doing it themselves. Yeah.
Sometimes we do a joint venture to increase the chances of success.
Correct.
Because I would bid as myself, and then you come because you want to bid on the same contract, and then you want me to joint venture with you, and then I'll bid in a joint venture with you. So if I lose, you might win, and then we work with you.
Yeah, but in addition, if they have never had exposure to government contracts, as soon as they see how, I won't say easy it is, but as soon as they see how it works, what benefit do you bring to them? Probably little or none. Little or none. Now, there's some big companies like, I use General Electric. They're about to go out of business. But anyway, General Electric had a subsector within steam engines, within healthcare, within this, where they did set aside, where they joint ventured with minorities. And you're black, yellow, blue, green, and you've got GE as your joint venture partner. Okay, thanks, Kat. I mean...